Good morning, good evening, friends. Welcome to my channel, Ek Kitab Se Ek Moti. Today, it's going to be a short video on a very short book, actually, and I've selected a paragraph or two from this book, and I'm going to have a brief discussion on what the concept is that is being discussed by Watchman Nee in this great book. So it's titled "Release of the Spirit," and the writer is Watchman Nee. Watchman Nee was a Chinese devotee of God. And when I was reading this book, a passage and a diagram really kind of got my attention. And I thought I should make a video on this because this concept is very similar in all religions, whether it's Hinduism or Christianity, or I think some people pronounce Christianity as Christianity as well. So Christianity or Islam or any other religion. So for example, in Hinduism, we have this concept of absolute surrender to God and submission to God. Similarly, in Islam, I think the word Islam in itself means peace and submission, if I'm not wrong. And in Christianity, too, you have this concept of surrendering your life to Christ, so crucifying the flesh and so on. So all these are similar ideas in all religions. So I've just picked this or selected this universal concept, and you can adapt it to your religion and apply it in order to, live effective spiritual lives. Because ultimately, I think it is the spiritual life that matters. Because whatever achievements we kind of attain in this world, I mean, whether it's material substance or a house, property, land, gold, a bank balance, or whether it's attainment of some skills or some education or writing of books or attaining of name and fame. All these things are temporary, but the spiritual life is considered permanent by all religions. So there is something that survives or outlives our earthly life, and that's what spirituality is all about. So it is spirituality, I think, is an attempt to kind of free this spirit that is encaged, or is there a word called encaged? Spirituality is an attempt to free the spirit from the bondage of the flesh, the bondage of the mind. So there is a distinction between soul and spirit in some books. So that's why while translating Watchman Nee's paragraph, I changed soul to mind so that it doesn't confuse some readers. So basically, spirituality is an attempt to let the spirit govern the mind and the body and all our actions that proceed from these two things. I mean, usually we think using our mind, we then use our body to speak and perform all actions. So basically, these are the two major things that we use in the world, right? And then we have the spirit, which needs to be kind of expressed through the mind and through the body, and that's what spirituality is all about, to let the spirit flow through or express itself through our mind and body. That's what all religion consists of, all religious practices or sadhana. So let me just read this passage. Before that, let me just discuss a diagram that I've used in my thumbnail. So the diagram is this. I'm just going to tell you what the diagram is. I'm unable to show you. I don't have a board at the moment. So according to this diagram, we have three segments. Every human being on this planet has these three elements or parts. So the first is the body, what Watchman Nee calls the outermost man, the body. Man is used universally, so it applies to both man and woman. So there is no discrimination there. It's just a traditional way of using a word which encompasses both men and women. So the body is the outermost man. The soul, or the mind, as I prefer to call it, so that it doesn't confuse people of different religious backgrounds. So mind is very clear, right? We know that mind is something that kind of feels and thinks and so on, all the mental processes that we go through. So the soul is the outer man. So outermost is body, mind is also outer, so that's the outer man. So outermost man is body, outer man is soul, and spirit is the inner man, and that's the essence of our personalities, and that is what needs to be released so that it starts functioning through the soul and the body, and so that the soul and the body do not become a hindrance to the outward expression of this spirit that is the inner man. So all attempt of spiritual life is to let the inner man govern the outer and the outermost man. So let's see what Watchman Nee has to say about this concept. The release of the spirit by Watchman Nee. We thus will speak of the spirit as the inward man, the mind as the outer man, and the body as the outermost man. We must never forget that our inward man is the human spirit where God dwells, the place where the Spirit of the Lord is joined to our spirit. Just as we are dressed in our clothing, so our inward man wears an outward man. That is, our spirit wears the mind. Moreover, the spirit and mind similarly wear the body. It is quite evident that men are generally more conscious of the outer man and the outermost man, but they hardly recognize or understand their inner man, their spirit. We must know that he who can work for God is the one whose inward man has been released. The basic difficulty of a servant of God lies in the failure of his inward man to break through his outward man. Therefore, we must recognize before God that the first difficulty to our work is not in others, but in ourselves. Our spirit seems to be wrapped in a covering which cannot easily break forth. If we have never learned how to release our inward man by breaking through the outward man, we are not able to serve. Nothing can so hinder us as this outward man. Whether our works are fruitful or not depends upon whether our outward man has been broken by the Lord, so that the inward man can pass through this brokenness and come forth. This inner statement specifies the basic problem. The Lord wants to break our outward man in order for the inward man to have a way out. When the inward man is released, we will be blessed. Now that's a powerful concept. I think whenever I read some of the words of Watchman Nee, I feel that he has really grasped the essential aspect of spirituality, and it's universally applicable, regardless of your religious background. So what he's trying to say is that unless these two outward men are broken, that is the outermost man, which is the body, and the outer man. Outermost man is the body, the outer man is the mind. So these two need to be broken, and then the inner man will take over or take control of the situation or life, and then the inner man will start expressing himself or herself through these channels of serving the Lord. So how do we break these two things? So there are different ways. For example, one can meditate, one can really think about these messages, and so on. But the most powerful method is when we are confronted by difficulties, or when difficulties surround us, especially when we are criticized, or when someone takes advantage of us, or when we are in distress, maybe physical distress, or some kind of mental distress, a lot of worries and difficulties. So do we think that God, who is all-powerful, who is called omnipotent, right, really doesn't know about our problems, or really isn't it because of his permission that something can really happen to us? That's why many of the great spiritual masters say that we need to see the hand of God in everything that happens to us. So one way of breaking the body, that is the outer man and the outermost man, and this mind, that is the outer man, is to welcome problems. I mean, problems are a way of breaking these two, so that we then realize that we thought we were self-sufficient and we had all the powers to handle all our difficulties and carry all our responsibilities ourselves. But when we are confronted with all these overwhelming problems, that's when we realize that we are insufficient in order to handle those difficulties and problems, and that we need power from on high, or spiritual power, which actually is inside us. So that's the essential concept. So we should stop blaming others, and we should really not be sad about anything, because when so-called sorrow, or so-called trouble, or so-called difficulty, distress, whenever we face these things, whenever we experience these things, these are opportunities to break the outermost man, and the outer man, that is the body and the spirit. I'm sorry, but the body and the mind, they need to be broken, and then you really feel the surging Spirit of God that can work through you and can let you be an effective channel for leading a godly life. So, for example, I'll give you an example. So E. Stanley Jones, I think I made a video on this as well, on this incident. So E. Stanley Jones was one of the world famous speakers, one of the most famous speakers of his time, orator, and he was a preacher. So the responsibilities that he had were overwhelming him, and he was having nervous breakdowns, as it was called during those days. So we might call this depression, or a kind of inability to handle our responsibilities, because we feel that we are incapable of handling those problems. So that's when he seemed to hear God's voice asking him. The voice said, "Are you yourself ready to do the work for which I have called you?" And he Stanley Jones, "No, Lord, I'm done for. I don't have the resources to handle this." That's when God said, "If you turn your life over to me, I will take care of it." What does this turning over one's life to God mean? It means turning over the mind to Him, turning over the body to Him. Turning over the outermost man, the body, to the Lord. Turning over the the outer man. The outermost man is the body. So turn it over to God. The outer man is the mind or the soul. Turn it over to God. Just transfer the control from yourself to God, or let me put it in a different way. Hand over the reins of your outermost man and your outer man to the Lord, and then God will fill you and kind of completely completely there is a beautiful word for it which I'm trying to recall. He'll completely fill you, submerge you in his spirit, and will completely encompass you, or completely the dwelling of the Lord's Spirit will be complete in you. That's when you will attain spiritual success in life, and that's when you'll attain indescribable peace and happiness and joy in life, regardless of outside circumstances. So thanks for watching this video.